All right, let's give away 4 more pairs of tickets to the Mississippi Braves, M-Braves, AA affiliate of the Atlanta Braves. Wonderful partner on the show. Beautiful stadium they play in. It is a Thirsty Thursday, brought to you by Key City Brewery. And text Braves to our Ag Up Equipment John Deere Tractor text line, 601-885-3776. We'll give away 4 pairs. First 4 people to text Braves to 601-885-3776. Thirsty Thursday, $2 beers. You got Michelob Ultra, Stella Artois, Kona Big Wave, Golden Ale, Key City, many other beers out there at the Braves ballpark. And also Key City Brewery, that group will be in studio at 9:30. They're local from Vicksburg. They got it going on. And what did I have last night, Jason?
You said you had the O'Hanrahan's Revenge.
I did.
O'Hanrahan's Curse. That's what it is. O'Hanrahan's Curse. Good Irish red ale.
It's a delicious Irish red ale by Key City Brewery. So look forward to, sipping on a little beer later with Key City Brewery. We want to welcome in our friend Tom Luginbill on the Out of Bounds Show. 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. National college football analyst with ESPN. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. And Tom Luginbill, have you watched the Johnny Manziel documentary?
I have, dude, and I got to be honest with you, I was disappointed in it. I came away feeling like I didn't learn anything I didn't already know, or at least didn't already assume went on.
Right.
And I also thought it would be, 2 to 3 episodes. It was kind of quick, and I thought they kind of treetop things a little bit. And what's so interesting about it though is normally when you have a story like this, at some point, the story comes to an end, and there's the individual, in this case, Johnny Manziel, and he's found himself a wife, and he's got 3 beautiful kids, and, he's learned from his mistakes, and he looks back with regret, and he looks forward with promise and love for his family and what's ahead. And all we did was watch the same prick from the beginning to end.
Well, so when did you meet him? When was the first time you met him?
So when they showed Dave Pash on that clip with Greasy, that was our first game that year. It was my first game on the field as a field analyst. So it was the Texas A&M Rice game, that opening season, first week when he was suspended because of the autograph thing for the first half.
Oh, after he had become a huge deal. Okay.
Yeah, this would have been coming off of the Heisman year. So we met him in game prep and all of that stuff, and actually that was my first game as a field analyst that year.
Okay, was it really?
Yeah.
Okay,
10 years ago.
2013, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because he boat raced everybody in 2012. So I remember, going to the A&M Mississippi State game, Lugs, in 2012. And he made everybody on Mississippi State's defense look silly. And I got to see Bo Jackson live, Herschel, Tebow, Cam. I watched all those guys live, among others. Peyton Manning. Well, I mean, he not the same deal athletically, but great player. And many, many others. And I just thought, at the time, I've never seen anything like this. So, yeah, I get that he's, not awesome as a dude, but what a spectacular talent, Tom.
Oh, I mean, when you listen to, Cliff Kingsbury talk about him, it's almost like he knew the only way to deal with him was to just unleash him, right? Here's kind of the premise of what we'd like to do, but I'm not necessarily going to tell you how to get from point A to point B to point C, because I think in doing something like that, you're probably restricting what he's capable of. And I think Cliff Kingsbury recognized that, and he recognized that very early on, and it was very clear, too, that he recognized that there were some things going on that he didn't want to know nothing about.
Right.
That he wanted to be as far away from. And as long as the kid showed up every day to practice, showed up to meetings, and showed up to the game, that was his chief concern. But yeah, I mean, he could do things that were just so instinctively natural, like stuff that you either come out of the womb with or you don't. But the problem is, and it goes back to, you and I have talked about this countless times, at the end of the day, right, if you don't have some of those other factors like work ethic and, you know, the utmost of character, a devotion to the weight room, a devotion to the playbook, like sooner or later it all catches up with you, and you're only going to go so far, because when you get to that next level, everybody else that is a worker, that is taking it serious, that does devote themselves to it entirely, they'll go right past you.
Right. I like that. Instinctively natural. You know, it reminds me of what Jimmy Iovine said, music mogul. And he was he worked with so many talented musicians, and then he got in with Dr. Dre and Beats, and they sold it to Apple for $3 billion. But when they were interviewing him about all the people he had worked with over his career, he said, man, you can't harness those people. You got to let them ride.
Right.
I mean, you got,
right.
And there's just, what he reminded me of is musicians that you could never put in a box. You had to let, even the, you know, some of the stuff they did outside of the stage, you were like, ugh. But they were so insanely talented, Tom, you just had to let it ride. And I think that's what Cliff Kingsbury and Kevin Sumlin and others did, Luke's.
Yeah. And you know what? And I don't, it's not that different than what Baker Mayfield is. You know, Baker Mayfield's very, very similar the same
True.
way. Was able to maybe harness it a little bit and step back and say, okay, I can only walk this line or push this envelope so far. And he kind of had that intuition that Johnny's never had, right? There is no line in the sand. There is no red line. There is no going too far in his mind. And you know what's so sad about it, dude? Is when you watch him and you see him play, he could have been Doug Flutie.
Yes.
He would have been a billionaire.
Well, he could have been. And you know what he could have been? A poor man's, and please understand how good this is. You do. A more athletic, poor man's Drew Brees. And here's where I'm going with, because he was deadly accurate, Luke's. I mean, had he allowed people that you know to coach him, you're right. He could have made several $100 million. That's a great point.
Oh yeah. Big time. And it's just a shame to see all of that, because, and you know, you talk about accurate, like he's the kind of accurate that Brett Favre was, in the sense that things don't have to be perfect.
Right.
You don't have to be on platform all the time. You don't have to have a clean pocket. He could be falling away. He could be thrown across his body. He could be drifting off to the right. And he could, without things being perfect, maintain accuracy, which is extremely rare.
He is the most electrifying player I've ever watched well, hold on. Michael Vick. So there's three that jump out at me, but you've been in this deal for a long time. And a lot of people ride with Reggie Bush. And no doubt he was electrifying. But I always have to go back to the QB position because it trumps all. And so it's tough for me, Luke's, between Vic and Johnny Manziel. And I saw a list. Jason pulled it. Most electrifying college football players of all time. This list has Reggie Bush 1, Michael Vick 2, Adrian Peterson 3, and Vince Young 4, Charles Woodson, who was an amazing pro, 5, and Manziel.
Where's Marshall Faulk on that list?
Falk is not on here, but as you and I, hey, I'm with you. He was one of my favorite players. Lamar Jackson comes in at 7.
Okay. That's fair.
Devin Hester at 8. Tyrann Mathieu at 9. Ted Ginn Jr. at 10. Falk would trump a lot of the guys that I just referenced on this list.
Yeah. But there's some big ones on there. There's some big names there that have literally I mean, if you want to define electrifying, they are.
What, Cam's not on here. I think the first time I watched Cam live, it was Thursday night against Mississippi State. We were still kind of warming up to who and what he was, but I was on the sideline for some of the game. And here, my first thought was, I've never seen anything like this. 6'5", 6'6", kind of like Magic Johnson at point guard. Never seen anything like this. 6'5", 6'6", 250 plus at quarterback. But he just was still so raw. Was he super good? Yeah, but he wasn't like electrifying like Vic or Manziel. Does that make sense, Tom, at that point?
So it's funny. Yeah, because he's not sudden like that.
Yeah.
Those guys were sudden. They were stop, start, jump cut, this, that. He was too big to be that guy, right? It's so funny, too, not to get off topic, but you talk about Cam. So I happened to be at Auburn that spring doing some recruiting stuff while they were in spring football. The spring semester he got there. And, Bo, I am not kidding around. And if Gus Malzahn was on with us right now, he would back me in saying this. He was so bad in the 2 days that I was there. Like, you watched him, and he was this big, good-looking kid, a rocket of an arm, like strong arm. He was fumbling snaps. He was mishandling handoffs. He's airmailing throws that were easy completions. And it was like, oh, man, dude, how are they going to play with this guy? And then all of a sudden he shows up in the fall, and the rest is history. And I'm not exaggerating when I tell you it was crazy how bad he was.
Who would you pick as more electrifying? I think I know where you're going to go. Mike Vick or Johnny Manziel?
Mike Vick.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And I think, I think the other thing too about it, like if you ask the two of those guys to get on the line and run, I mean, I think Michael Vick would outrun him by 3 or 4 lengths.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I couldn't figure out how like straight line fast Manziel was, but I just remember seeing him live that day against Mississippi State, and he just ran past people. So I don't think he necessarily flew, but he was quick and fast, but not like, at some of the other guys we're referencing. Tom Luginbill on the Out of Bounds show and the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. You're listening to Out of Bounds, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. So I want to switch gears here to there's some talk that Michigan can win the national title. I'm not convinced, but I think they can have a great year. I don't think they got enough juice to get past Georgia, Bama, or LSU, whoever shakes out of our league down here. But I do think that they can beat Ohio State in Ann Arbor. Again, believe it or not, just because maybe that's the way Harbaugh has built the team. Do you believe that Michigan can actually get all the way through Big Ten championship game and 2 games in the playoffs this year?
Yeah, I think they're capable. But I think with every team that's in that conversation, you have to stay healthy, right? You have to have the ball bounce your way a couple of times. You have to have your best players play their best, especially in the biggest games that you play. And I think that's one thing about Michigan that people trust now that they didn't trust his first 4, 5, 6 years there was, do you remember the criticism they used to take because they couldn't beat anybody that was any good? I mean, he had his record against top 10 teams, I think at one point was 1-11. And they just, every time they had a high profile matchup, they laid an egg. And then they finally got over that hump. And I think that's kind of what gives them some credence and some equity and belief that they could win the thing. I still don't think that they have Ohio State pure athletes.
No.
But I think they're every bit as probably good as a team as Ohio State is. So we'll see. And the other thing too is in the grand scheme of things in all of college football, I think one of the biggest storylines is the teams that are quote-unquote supposed to be contenders, many of them are replacing their quarterback. So you got Ohio State, you've got Georgia, you've got Alabama, you've got Clemson, all right? And when those teams are supposed to be in the mix, and then you have an LSU in there with Jaden Daniels, all right, and you've got a Michigan with J.J. McCarthy, you got an SC with Caleb Williams. I do think that those teams probably get a little bit of more of a benefit of the doubt when you're making preseason prognostications, because the most important position is accounted for.
Okay, so where does that leave us with Bama? I can't wait to see what Tommy Rees and Nick Saban do. It's funny that we're saying this. This is a big year for Saban because they haven't won it the last couple of years, and his mentor has protege, excuse me. And yeah, I just wonder if they're going to. It's not. I shouldn't say this. It's not easy for coaches to do, but when you have a dude like Milroe who can run it, man, it just cleans up a lot of stuff. If you don't have, if Simpson or the Notre Dame guy are just not super duper poised and accurate in the passing game, Luke's.
I would agree, and I think that's why he may have the slight edge. I also think he has the locker room, which is a big component to all of this.
Oh, yeah.
Tyler Buckner's new, coming in from Notre Dame. Ty Simpson's just, finishing up redshirting. And Jalen's played the most. The problem with Jalen Milroe is he just has a tendency to just make stupid decisions with the football. And that is not going to play out well with that head coach. And if you turn the ball over to the other team, if you make poor decisions, you're just not going to last long with him. I think I saw a headline, I think it was in the Tuscaloosa News, or a quote from Nick Saban when he was asked about the quarterback position. He basically said, "Force us to play you."
Yeah, I saw that.
It essentially means nobody's taking the reins of this thing. Nobody has gotten themselves advanced or has a leg up, because you're all doing the same things, meaning you'll make a play, you'll miss a play. You'll make 2 plays, you'll screw up 2 plays. It seems to be the same common denominator across the board. And Alabama's personnel is going to be so good that I think that's probably what frustrates Nick Saban is you don't have to play beyond yourself, right? You don't have – it's like Kyle McCord or Devin Brown at Ohio State. You're going to walk in that huddle with the best receiving core in America at Ohio State. Just don't screw it up. And so it's the same thing with Harrison back at Georgia. And I'm not convinced on him yet either. We'll see. But, dude, just walk in there. Ryan Day put it perfectly. Make the routine plays routinely.
Right.
I mean, that's basically what it comes down to. And apparently at Alabama, that's not taking place right now. But to your first point, if you can run and they can use you in the run game, it's going to take a load off of everything else, and it changes how defenses will have to defend Alabama.
Right.
And that might be why they're forced to take what is the good, being his legs, and have to accept the bad until he either works his way out of it or works his way out of the lineup.
Yeah, because as good as Bryce Young was, and he is athletic, bottom line is he wasn't a runner, and they didn't want him to run. He didn't, he's deadly accurate, and also they didn't want him to get hurt. So now all of a sudden we shift to this, and really it's been a long time, since Bama. If Milroe is the guy, where not only dual threat, but I mean he may be the best rushing QB in the country if he does get the nod. Tom.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what, and the thing is, if you look at him, if you've ever seen him in print, he literally looks like a running back or a strong safety. And to be honest with you, I think that's what they'd like to do with him, but I don't think the kid wants anything to do with that. So the bottom line is, if he's going to be stubborn about playing quarterback, okay, but then whatever those strengths are that he does bring that could lead to playing another position, you got to wrap the offense around those strengths and do whatever you can to mask the weaknesses.
Out of bounds, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. We're visiting with Tom Luginbill on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. It looks like, all right, so things are maybe shaking out down at Auburn, Tom. We've got Peyton Thorne, the transfer from Michigan State, Robbie Ashford. Whoever Hugh Freeze has, he elevates them. Now, there's a ceiling on some guys, but what he's done with guys is incredible. They may not be really good at quarterback, but I expect them to be way more than serviceable. and in that pretty good range, regardless of who wins it at Auburn. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Peyton Thorne has a very low ceiling. I think he's a what you see is what you get type guy, personally. I think some of the discussion that we were having about Jalen Milroe at Alabama does apply to Robbie Ashford in the sense that he's so athletic and he's played a lot of football. And I'll give him this. He has taken the brunt of some serious criticism, right, in public scrutiny, and has hung in there. So I think Robbie Ashford has some mental toughness. He's got a short memory, and if they can just elevate his accuracy and his ability to, again, make the routine plays routinely, then he doesn't have to carry the entire offense either. It was like last year they had no semblance of a passing game, so the entire offense was on him just manufacturing plays or being used as a designated runner. So there has to be a complement and a balance to that. But I think he brings more to the position than Peyton Thorne does. And maybe Peyton Thorne has gone through camp and just been more efficient and made better decisions and been more accurate as a passer, which is what everybody wants out of Robbie Ashford. But you're not going to get those same wow or impressive run plays, and people aren't going to have to defend Auburn the way you would if Robbie Ashford is playing quarterback. So I was one of those people, like, I was really surprised Oregon State took DJ Uiagalelei out of the transfer portal. I was super surprised Nebraska took Jeff Sims out of the transfer portal, and I was equally surprised that Auburn took Peyton Thorne.
Okay.
I looked at it, I'm like, okay, is that a depth add, or are you looking at him as a significant improvement?
Well, we've only got a minute, but that takes us to, you just teed me up. You know, we go back to Spencer Sanders and Jackson Dart. Everybody seems to believe that Dart has this totally under control, but I'm just not convinced. I think Kiffin's a mad scientist and very successful most of the time on offense, but he will try and push anything. And, Dart is no doubt talented, but you never know when Sanders could jump up. Who knows?
I don't think anything has changed with Lane Kiffin and Jackson Dart in their relationship since the beginning of last year, and it's very simple. If you take risks with the football, you are likely not going to be the starting quarterback here. Plain and simple. He knows how talented he is. He knows he's capable of making spectacular plays, but you can't throw the ball to the other team. And I think if Jackson Dart's going to be their guy, and he knows full well that when it comes to decision-making, he's on a short leash, then we won't see Spencer Sanders.
Yeah.
If he makes poor decisions, we will. Now you have to have a discussion about Spencer Sanders. Is he healthy? And can he stay healthy? Because that's been a career problem for him.
We'll leave it there. Hope you have a good weekend. Thanks, dude.
You too, man. See ya.
Tom Luginbill, national college football analyst with ESPN. He joined us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Our show is brought to you by FS1 Concepts. And we are excited to have them on the show. And obviously, they service restaurants and casinos and hunting camps with appliances like reach-in and walk-in coolers and freezers and stainless steel tables and sinks, custom available, and ice machines powered by FS1 Concepts.